Hello and welcome to Nightmare Lullabies. As you settle in for the night, slip into over an hour of eerie tales and whispered shadows, laced with soft rain and thunder, crafted to chill you and soothe you into sleep. Now close your eyes, relax, and let the darkness drift you away. And if these nightly whispers draw you in, stay with us for more haunting secrets. Margaret Harrow stood on the golden sands of Glenelg Beach in Adelaide, South Australia, the sun blazing overhead, its rays glinting off the calm waters of Gulf St. Vincent, the air filled with the salty tang of the sea and the distant hum of seagulls circling above, their cries a sharp counterpoint to the laughter of children playing in the shallows. It was January 26, 1966, Australia Day, a public holiday that had drawn families to the beach in droves, their colorful towels and umbrellas dotting the shoreline, their voices a cheerful cacophony of celebration, their picnics spread out on blankets, their radios playing the latest hits, Normie Rose K. Sarah crackling through the static, a soundtrack to a day that promised nothing but joy. Margaret, 32, a housewife from the working-class suburb of Mile End, felt a rare moment of peace as she watched her three children, Clara, 9, Elise, 7, and Thomas, 4, playing in the sand a few yards away, their small figures a picture of innocence, their laughter a melody that warmed her heart, their presence a reminder of the life she and her husband, Daniel, had built together, a life that, for this moment, seemed perfect. Clara, the eldest, stood with her blonde hair tied back in neat braids, her blue swimsuit slightly too big, a hand-me-down from a cousin, her serious gray eyes scanning the beach as she held Thomas's hand, her role as the responsible big sister a mantle she wore with pride, her voice gentle. "Stay close, Tommy, don't go near the water without me, okay?" Elise, with her wild brown curls and a yellow swimsuit that matched the sun, was crouched in the sand, her small hands digging for shells, her laughter bubbling up as she held up a tiny, pearlescent treasure, her voice bright. "Look, Clara, I found one, it's so pretty. I'm going to make a necklace for Mummy." Thomas, the youngest, with his sandy blonde hair and a red swim trunk that kept slipping down his tiny hips, toddled after Clara, his chubby hands clutching a plastic bucket, his voice a delighted squeal. "Sandcastle, Clara, let's make a big one with a moat and everything." Margaret smiled, her hands resting on her hips, her floral sundress fluttering in the gentle breeze, her voice soft. January 26, 1966, 9:30 a.m. They're so happy. It's a perfect day. I wish every day could be like this. Daniel Harrow, 35, a factory worker at the Holden plant in Elizabeth, sat beside Margaret on a faded blanket, his broad shoulders relaxed, his dark hair slicked back with a bit of Brill cream, his eyes half closed against the glare of the sun, his voice a lazy drawl. "They're having a ball, Maggie. Let's let them play a bit longer. We'll have lunch soon. The kids can't get enough of the beach. It's good to see them so carefree." Margaret nodded, her hands smoothing the edge of the blanket, her eyes never leaving her children, her heart swelling with a love so fierce it almost hurt, her mind drifting to the small joys of their morning. The drive from Mile End in their old Holden FJ, the kids singing in the back seat, the picnic they'd packed with Vegemite sandwiches, lamingtons, and a thermos of lemonade, the promise of a day filled with nothing but sunshine and laughter, a day to celebrate being Australian, being together, being a family. Glenelg Beach was a popular spot on Australia Day, its wide expanse of sand stretching along the coast, its jetty jutting out into the water, a wooden pier where children often played, its boards creaking under the weight of decades, its railings a perch for seagulls, its end a vantage point for watching the boats bobbing in the Gulf, their sails white against the blue horizon. The beach was bustling with activity, families setting up for the day, teenagers kicking a football, vendors selling ice creams and fish and chips from carts along the promenade, their voices calling out over the crowd, their wares a temptation for the children who ran back and forth, their coins jingling in their pockets, their faces sticky with melted treats. The air was warm, the temperature climbing toward 30 degrees Celsius, the sky a brilliant blue with only a few wispy clouds on the horizon, the kind of day that felt like a gift, a day that should have been remembered for its joy, not its tragedy, a day that would soon become a nightmare etched into the history of Adelaide, a nightmare that would haunt Margaret for the rest of her life. At 10 a.m., Clara looked up from the sandcastle she was building with Thomas, her hands dusted with sand, her voice eager. Mummy, can we go to the jetty just for a little while? We want to see the boats. We'll be quick, I promise. I'll watch Elise and Tommy. We'll stay together. Margaret hesitated, her mother's instinct flaring, her eyes scanning the crowd, her mind racing with the dangers that could lurk in a place so full of strangers, her voice cautious. January 26, 1966, 10 a.m. I don't know, Clara, it's awfully busy. I'd rather you stay where I can see you. There are so many people. I don't want you getting lost. But Clara's pleading eyes, so full of trust and excitement, softened her resolve, her voice relenting. All right, but only for a few minutes, and you stay together, you hear me? Don't talk to anyone and come straight back. I'll be watching from here. Daniel nodded, his hand resting on Margaret's arm, his voice reassuring. They'll be fine, Maggie. The jetty's just over there. You can see it from here. Clara's a good girl. She'll keep an eye on the little ones. Let them have a bit of fun. It's Australia Day, after all. Margaret forced a smile, her hands twisting the hem of her dress, her eyes following her children as they ran toward the jetty. Their small figures weaving through the crowd, Clara holding Thomas's hand, Elise skipping beside them, their laughter a faint echo over the noise of the beach, their swimsuits bright against the golden sand, their innocence a beacon in a world that was about to turn dark, a world that would soon shatter Margaret's heart, a world that would take her children and leave her with nothing but questions. The jetty was a short walk from their blanket, a wooden structure that stretched out over the water, its planks weathered by years of sun and salt, its railings painted white but peeling in places, its surface crowded with children and families, their voices a chorus of excitement as they pointed at the boats, their hands sticky with ice cream, their parents calling out to them to be careful, to stay away from the edge, to hold hands. Clara led her siblings to the end of the jetty, her hand firm around Thomas's, her voice steady. Look, Tommy, see that boat? It's so big. I bet it's going to Kangaroo Island. Wouldn't that be fun? Elise pressed her face against the railing, her curls bouncing as she pointed at a seagull perched nearby, her voice a squeal. It's so close, Clara. Do you think it'll let me pet it? I want to touch its feathers. Thomas giggled, his bucket swinging in his hand, his voice a chant. Boat, 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 big boat. I want to go on a boat. Margaret kept her eyes on them, her hands shading her face against the sun, her heart easing slightly as she saw them together. Their figures small but visible, their laughter a thread that connected them to her, a thread that she clung to as the minutes ticked by, a thread that would soon snap, leaving her grasping at nothing. At 10:15 a.m., a group of teenagers playing with a beach ball moved in front of her line of sight, their shouts and laughter blocking her view for a moment, their bodies a temporary barrier between her and her children, her voice sharp. January 26, 1966, 10:15 a.m. Excuse me, I need to see my kids. Can you move, please? I can't see them. The teenagers stepped aside, their apologies quick. But when Margaret looked again, the jetty was empty where her children had been, their small figures gone, their laughter silenced, their presence erased as if they'd never been there at all. Panic surged through her, her heart pounding in her chest, her hands trembling as she stood, her voice rising. Daniel, they're gone. I can't see them. They were right there. Where are they? Where are my babies? Daniel jumped to his feet, his face paling, his eyes scanning the jetty, his voice urgent. They can't have gone far, Maggie. They were just there. Maybe they're on the other side. I'll go look. Stay here. Don't move. I'll find them. He ran toward the jetty, his sandals slapping against the sand, his voice calling out. Clara, Elise, Thomas, where are you? Come back to Daddy. It's time to come back. But the jetty was a sea of faces, none of them her children, their absence a void that seemed to swallow the noise of the beach, their disappearance a mystery that was only just beginning, a mystery that would change everything. Margaret followed Daniel, her hands wringing, her voice a scream as she pushed through the crowd, her eyes darting from face to face, her heart racing with a fear she'd never known, a fear that clawed at her chest, a fear that whispered the worst. January 26, 1966, 10:30 a.m. Clara, Elise, Thomas, where are you? Please come back. Mummy's here. I need you. Don't leave me. She reached the jetty, her hands gripping the railing, her voice echoing over the water, her tears falling as she searched for her children, their swimsuits blue, yellow, red, a beacon she couldn't find, their laughter a sound she couldn't hear, their presence a memory that was already slipping away, a memory that would soon be replaced by a grief too vast to bear. Daniel returned, his face ashen, his hands empty, his voice trembling. They're not here, Maggie. I looked everywhere. They're not on the jetty. They're not on the beach. I don't know where they went. We need to get help. We need the police now. Margaret's knees buckled, her hands clutching Daniel's arm, her voice a wail. "They can't be gone, they were right here, I was watching them. How can they be gone? Where are my babies, Daniel? Where are they?" The crowd around them began to notice, their voices hushed as they gathered, their eyes filled with concern, their hands reaching out to help, their words a murmur of shock. 3 kids missing just like that on Australia Day. How could this happen? We need to help. We need to find them. At 11 a.m., Margaret ran to the lifeguard station near the promenade, her voice frantic as she pounded on the door, her tears streaming down her face, her hands shaking. "My children, Clara, Elise, Thomas, they're gone. They were on the jetty. They're not there anymore. I can't find them. Please help me find them. They're all I have." The lifeguard, a young man named Harold Tate, 22, sprang into action, his whistle blowing as he called for assistance, his voice urgent. January 26, 1966, 11:05 a.m. "We've got 3 missing kids, Clara Harrow 9, Elise Harrow 7, Thomas Harrow 4, last seen on the jetty, Clara in a blue swimsuit, Elise in a yellow one, Thomas in red trunks, blonde hair. We need to search the beach. Now, alert the police. We need all hands on deck." The police arrived within the hour, their sirens a wail that cut through the festive atmosphere. Their presence a stark reminder of the danger that had shattered the day. Their uniforms a contrast to the bright colors of the beach. Their voices a call to action as they organized a search. Detective Alistair Finch, 40, a seasoned investigator with the South Australia Police, stepped onto the sand, his suit jacket already damp with sweat, his badge glinting in the sun, his dark eyes sharp as he took in the scene, his voice calm but commanding. January 26, 1966, 11:45 a.m. "I'm Detective Alistair Finch. I'll be leading this investigation, Mrs. Harrow. Mr. Harrow, I need you to tell me everything. When did you last see your children? What were they wearing? Who were they with? Anything you can think of that might help us find them." Margaret collapsed into Daniel's arms, her voice broken as she spoke, her hands clutching a small shell Elise had given her earlier that morning, her tears soaking into the sand. January 26, 1966, 11:50 a.m. They were on the jetty, Clara, 9, in a blue swimsuit, blonde hair in braids, Elise, 7, in a yellow swimsuit, brown curls, Thomas, 4, in red trunks, blonde hair. They were together. I told them to stay together. They were supposed to come back. They were only gone a few minutes. Where are they? Please find them. They're my babies. I can't lose them. I can't. Alistair nodded, his notebook open, his pen scratching against the paper, his mind already racing with the possibilities, his heart heavy with the knowledge that time was against them, his voice steady. "We'll find them, Mrs. Harrow. I promise you, we'll do everything we can. We're starting the search now. We'll comb the beach, the water, the streets. We'll find your children." The search began immediately, police officers and volunteers spreading out across Glenelg Beach, their voices calling the children's names, their eyes scanning the sand, the water, the crowd, their hands pushing through the underbrush near the promenade, their boats launching into the Gulf to search the shallows, their radios crackling with updates that offered no hope. The day a nightmare that had only just begun. A nightmare that would stretch across decades. A nightmare that would leave Margaret with nothing but grief, a grief that would define her life. A grief that started with a day that should have been perfect. A day that ended with the disappearance of her children. A disappearance that would become one of Australia's most enduring mysteries. The sun climbed higher over Glenelg Beach, its golden light casting long shadows across the sand, the heat intensifying as the morning gave way to midday, the air thick with the scent of salt water and sunscreen, the festive atmosphere of Australia Day shattered by the disappearance of Clara, Elise, and Thomas Harrow, their absence a gaping wound in the heart of the beach, a wound that bled into the crowd, turning laughter into whispers, joy into fear, celebration into chaos. It was January 26, 1966, just past noon, and the search for the 3 children, Clara, 9, Elise, 7, and Thomas, 4, had escalated into a full-scale operation, the South Australia Police mobilizing every available officer. Their voices a constant refrain as they called out the children's names, their boots leaving deep impressions in the sand, their radios crackling with updates that offered no hope, their presence a stark reminder of the tragedy that had unfolded in the span of mere minutes. A tragedy that had already begun to etch itself into the history of Adelaide, a tragedy that would haunt the city for decades to come. Detective Alistair Finch stood at the edge of the jetty, his suit jacket discarded in the heat, his white shirt clinging to his back with sweat, his tie loosened, his dark eyes scanning the crowd with a precision honed by years of experience. His notebook clutched in his hand, its pages already filling with notes that offered more questions than answers, his mind racing with the possibilities, his heart heavy with the weight of the task before him. At 40, Alastair was a seasoned investigator with the South Australia Police, a man known for his sharp mind and unyielding determination, a man who'd seen his share of darkness in a career that had taken him from the backstreets of Adelaide to the rural towns of the outback, a man who knew that the first hours of a missing persons case were critical, a man who feared that time was already slipping through his fingers, a man who couldn't shake the feeling that the children were in grave danger, a danger he might not be able to stop, a danger that might already have claimed them. Alastair turned to his team. A group of officers gathered around him, their faces etched with exhaustion and concern, their uniforms damp with sweat, their hands gripping whistles and megaphones, their voices hoarse from calling out to the children, their eyes reflecting the same determination that burned in Alastair's chest, a determination to find Clara, Elise, and Thomas, to bring them back to their parents, to restore the innocence that had been stolen from this day. He spoke, his voice steady but urgent. January 26, 1966, 12:15 p.m. We've got 3 missing children. Clara Harrow, 9, blonde hair in braids, blue swimsuit. Elise Harrow, 7, brown curls, yellow swimsuit. Thomas Harrow, 4, blonde hair, red swim trunks. Last seen on this jetty around 10:15 a.m. We've searched the beach, the water, the promenade, and we've got nothing. We need to expand the search, check the streets, the parks, the nearby shops. We need to talk to every witness, every vendor. Every person who was here. Someone saw something, someone knows something. We need to find them, now. The officers nodded, their movements swift as they fanned out across Glenelg, their voices echoing over the beach, their calls a desperate plea that mingled with the sound of the waves, their hands pushing through the crowd, their eyes searching for a glimpse of blue, yellow, or red, a glimpse of the children who'd vanished without a trace, a glimpse that might lead them to the truth. A truth that Alastair feared might be too terrible to face. A truth that might break the family waiting on the sand, a family whose world had already begun to crumble. A family whose grief was a mirror to the city's growing fear. Volunteers joined the search, their numbers swelling as word spread, their hands clutching photos of the children that Margaret had provided, their voices joining the chorus, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that these children could be their own, their determination a testament to the community's spirit. A spirit that refused to give up, even as the hours ticked by, even as hope began to fade, even as the sun beat down with a relentless heat that seemed to mock their efforts. Margaret Harrow sat on the blanket where she'd last seen her children, her floral sundress crumpled, her hands wringing a small shell that Elise had given her that morning, its pearlescent surface a cruel reminder of the joy they'd shared, its edges digging into her palm as she clutched it, her gray eyes red from crying, her voice a broken whisper. January 26, 1966, 12:30 p.m. Clara, Elise. Thomas, where are you? Mummy's here. I'm right here. Please come back. I need you. I can't do this without you. Daniel sat beside her, his broad shoulders hunched, his hands running through his dark hair, his face pale, his voice trembling as he tried to comfort her, his own fear a weight that threatened to crush him, his words a hollow promise. They'll find them, Maggie. The police are looking. Everyone's looking. They can't have gone far. They're probably just lost. They'll be back. They have to come back. But his eyes betrayed his doubt, his hands shaking as he reached for Margaret, his heart breaking at the sight of her pain, a pain that mirrored his own, a pain that grew with every minute that passed without news, a pain that would soon become a permanent part of their lives, a pain that would define them, a pain that would never truly heal. The beach, once a place of celebration, had transformed into a scene of chaos, the crowd thinning as families packed up their picnics, their voices hushed as they whispered about the missing children, their eyes darting to their own kids, their hands pulling them closer, their fear a palpable force that hung over the sand, a force that turned the bright colors of Australia Day into shades of gray, a force that reminded them of the fragility of safety, the fragility of joy, the fragility of life. The jetty, where Clara, Elise, and Thomas had last been seen, was cordoned off with police tape, its wooden planks a silent witness to their disappearance, its railings a perch for seagulls that seemed oblivious to the tragedy unfolding below, its end a vantage point where officers stood, their binoculars scanning the water, their voices calling out to boats in the Gulf, their hope a fragile thread that threatened to snap. A thread that Margaret clung to as she sat on the blanket, her eyes fixed on the jetty, her heart praying for a miracle that seemed further away with each passing moment. At 1 p.m., a witness came forward, a middle-aged ice cream vendor named Harold Tate, 55, who'd been stationed near the jetty all morning, his cart a bright red and white beacon on the promenade, his hands sticky with melted ice cream, his face lined with worry as he approached Alistair, his voice trembling. January 26, 1966, 1:05 p.m. Detective, I saw those kids. The 3 you're looking for. I'm sure of it. They were on the jetty around 10:15 a.m., playing with a beach ball. I remember. Because the oldest girl, the one with the braids, she was so careful with the little boy, holding his hand, making sure he didn't get too close to the edge. They were laughing, happy, but there was a man with them, a tall, skinny bloke, blonde hair, about 30, wearing a white shirt and khaki shorts. He was talking to them, gave them some coins for ice cream. I thought he was their uncle or something, but now, with them gone, I'm not so sure. I've got a bad feeling. What if he took them? Alistair's heart raced, his pen scratching furiously against his notebook, his mind seizing on the new lead, his voice sharp. January 26, 1966, 1:10 p.m. A blonde man, 30s tall, skinny, white shirt, khaki shorts, seen with the children on the jetty at 10:15 a.m. Gave them coins, seemed friendly. But you got a bad feeling. Is that right, Mr. Tate? Did you see where they went? Did you see him leave with them? Harold shook his head, his hands wringing, his voice low. I didn't see them leave. I got busy with customers. A big group came up right after. I lost sight of them. But I remember his face. He had a tan, looked like he spent a lot of time at the beach. And he was smiling, but it wasn't a nice smile. It was off. I don't know how to explain it. I wish I'd paid more attention. I wish I'd done something. Alistair nodded, his jaw tight, his mind racing with the implications. Lust as a motive, a predator who'd targeted the children for their innocence, their vulnerability, their trust, a man who might have lured them away with a smile and a few coins, a man who might have taken them from their family, a man who might still have them, a man they needed to find before it was too late. Alistair turned to his team, his voice urgent. January 26, 1966, 1:15 p.m., we've got a suspect description. Male, 30s tall, skinny, blonde hair, white shirt, khaki shorts, seen with the children on the jetty at 10:15 a.m. Gave them coins. We need to find this man now. Canvassed the beach, the promenade, the streets, talked to every vendor, every lifeguard, every person who was here. Someone else must have seen him. We need a name, a vehicle, anything. Let's move. The officers sprang into action, their movements swift, their voices calling out the description, their eyes scanning the crowd for a man who matched Harold's account, their hands clutching sketches of the children, their determination a fire that burned through their exhaustion, their hope a flicker in the darkness of the case, a flicker that Alistair clung to as he coordinated the search, his mind racing with the possibilities, his heart heavy with the fear that they might already be too late, a fear that he couldn't voice, a fear that he couldn't let take hold, a fear that threatened to consume him. Back on the blanket, Margaret and Daniel sat in a haze of fear and guilt, their hands clasped together, their eyes fixed on the jetty, their hearts breaking with every minute that passed without news, their minds replaying the morning over and over, their thoughts a torment that offered no escape, their guilt a weight that threatened to crush them, a weight that would only grow heavier as the days turned into weeks, the weeks into months, the months into years. Margaret's voice was a whisper, her hands clutching the shell, her tears falling onto the sand. January 26, 1966, 1:30 p.m. I should have gone with them. I should have kept them here. I should have said no. I should have known. I'm their mother. I'm supposed to protect them. How could I let this happen? How could I lose them? Daniel pulled her close, his own tears falling, his voice choked. It's not your fault, Maggie. We couldn't have known. We thought they were safe. We thought they'd be fine. It's not your fault. We'll find them. We have to find them. We can't lose them. We can't. But the guilt was a constant companion, a shadow that loomed over them, a shadow that grew darker with every update from the police, a shadow that whispered the worst, a shadow that Margaret couldn't escape, a shadow that would haunt her for the rest of her life. She thought of Clara's serious eyes, her careful way of watching over her siblings, her voice so full of responsibility, a responsibility that Margaret had trusted, a responsibility that had failed her, a responsibility that had led to this moment. a moment of loss that she couldn't comprehend, a moment that would define her, a moment that would break her. She thought of Elise's wild curls, her laughter, her love for shells, her small hands that had held up the pearlescent treasure with such pride. A treasure that now felt like a curse, a treasure that Margaret clutched as if it could bring her daughter back, a treasure that offered no comfort, only pain. She thought of Thomas's chubby cheeks, his delighted squeals, his tiny hands that had held hers so tightly, his voice a chant of joy, a joy that had been stolen, a joy that she might never hear again, a joy that had been replaced by a silence that was deafening, a silence that was unbearable, a silence that was her new reality. At 2 p.m., another witness came forward, a mother named Elsie Marrow, 42, who'd been on the beach with her own children, her voice trembling as she spoke to Alistair near the lifeguard station, her hands clutching her toddler's hand, her eyes filled with fear. January 26, 1966, 2:05 p.m. I saw them, the 3 kids, I'm sure of it. They were walking off the jetty around 10:30 a.m. with a man, the same one the ice cream man described, tall, blonde, white shirt, khaki shorts, he was holding the little boy's hand. The girls were walking beside him. They looked happy. He bought them ice creams. I thought he was their father, but now, with them missing, I'm not so sure. I saw them heading toward the park near the promenade, the one with the swings. I didn't think anything of it at the time, but now I'm scared. What if he took them? What if he hurt them? Alistair's heart sank, his pen scratching against his notebook, his voice urgent. January 26, 1966, 2:10 p.m. They were seen leaving the jetty at 10:30 a.m., with the blonde man, heading toward the park near the promenade. They seemed happy. He bought them ice creams. You thought he was their father. But now you're not sure, is that right, Mrs. Marrow? Did you see where they went after the park? Did you see a car, anything else? Elsie shook her head, her tears falling, her voice a whisper. I didn't see them after that. I was busy with my own kids. I didn't think to watch. I wish I had. I wish I'd stopped them. I wish I'd asked who he was. I'm so sorry. I should have done something. Alistair nodded, his jaw tight, his mind racing with the new information, his voice steady. Thank you, Mrs. Marrow. You've been very helpful. We'll check the park. We'll find them. I promise you, we'll do everything we can. Alistair radioed his team, his voice urgent. January 26, 1966, 2:15 p.m., new lead. The children were seen leaving the jetty at 10:30 a.m., with the blonde man, heading toward the park near the promenade. We need to search the park. Now look for any signs of them, any witnesses, any vehicles. Let's move. The officers converged on the park, a small playground just off the promenade, its swings swaying gently in the breeze, its slide glinting in the sun, its sandpit a place where children often played, its benches a spot where parents sat, its trees a canopy that offered shade, a canopy that might have hidden a predator who might have taken the children, a predator who might still be nearby, a predator they needed to find before it was too late. The park was empty when they arrived, its swings still, its slide abandoned, its sandpit untouched, its benches occupied by a few elderly couples who shook their heads when asked if they'd seen the children, their voices a murmur of sympathy. We didn't see them. We've been here since 11 o'clock. We would have noticed 3 kids with a man. We're so sorry. We hope you find them. Alistair's team searched every inch of the park, their hands pushing through the bushes, their eyes scanning the ground for any sign of the children. A dropped shell, a forgotten bucket, a footprint in the sand. But they found nothing, the park a silent witness to their absence, a silent witness to the horror that might have unfolded, a silent witness that offered no answers, only more questions, questions that Alistair couldn't answer, questions that Margaret couldn't bear, questions that would haunt them both for years to come. Back on the beach, Margaret stood, her hands clutching the shell, her eyes fixed on the park in the distance, her heart breaking with every update from the police, her voice a whisper. January 26, 1966, 3 p.m. A man, a blonde man, he was with them. He gave them ice cream. He took them to the park. Who is he? Where are my babies? What does he want with them? Why my children? Why us? Daniel held her, his own tears falling, his voice a plea. We'll find them, Maggie. We have to believe that. The police are looking. They've got a description. They'll find him. They'll bring them back. They have to. But the fear was a living thing, a monster that grew with every moment, a monster that whispered the worst, a monster that Margaret couldn't fight, a monster that would soon become her constant companion, a monster that would define her life, a monster that had already taken her children, a monster that might never let them go. Alistair stood in the park, his notebook open, his mind racing with the day's findings. The blonde man, the jetty, the park, the ice creams, the motif of lust that loomed over the case. A predator who might have targeted the children for their innocence, their trust, their vulnerability. A predator who might still have them. A predator who might already have hurt them. A predator he needed to find before it was too late. He thought of Margaret and Daniel, their grief a weight he could feel, their hope a fragile thing he needed to protect. Their children a responsibility he couldn't fail, a responsibility that would test him, a responsibility that might break him. But as he looked at the empty swings, the silent slide, the untouched sandpit, he felt the weight of the mystery pressing down on him. The children still missing, the blonde man still at large, the truth still hidden, a truth that might never be found, a truth that might destroy a family, a truth that might destroy a city, a truth that might destroy him. The sun began its descent over Glenelg Beach, its golden light softening into hues of orange and pink. The sky a canvas of color that belied the darkness that had settled over the search for Clara, Elise, and Thomas Harrow, the three children who'd vanished without a trace on Australia Day, January 26, 1966, their absence a void that seemed to grow with each passing hour. Their disappearance a mystery that deepened with each new lead, a mystery that threatened to consume everyone it touched. It was 4 p.m., and the beach, once a place of celebration, had become a battleground of hope and despair, the sand trampled by the boots of police officers and volunteers, the air heavy with the scent of salt water and sweat, the sound of the waves a cruel reminder of the time that was slipping away, a time that Detective Alistair Finch knew they couldn't afford to lose, a time that Margaret and Daniel Harrow felt as a physical ache, a time that might already have run out for their children, a time that might have sealed their fate in a way that no one could bear to imagine. Alistair stood in the small park near the promenade, the same park where Elsie Marrow had last seen the children with the blonde man, its swings still, its slide abandoned, its sandpit untouched, its benches a gathering place for officers who were taking a brief moment to regroup, their faces etched with exhaustion, their voices low as they shared updates, their hands clutching cups of tea provided by a local cafe owner who'd set up a makeshift station to support the search, their determination. A fire that burned through their fatigue, a fire that Alistair stoked with every order, every question, every lead he pursued. At 40, Alistair was a man who'd seen the worst of humanity in his years with the South Australia Police, a man who'd investigated murders, assaults, and disappearances across Adelaide and beyond, a man who'd learned to compartmentalize his emotions, to focus on the facts, to keep moving forward even when the odds were against him. But this case, the disappearance of 3 children on a day meant for celebration, was testing him in ways he hadn't expected. Its weight a burden he couldn't shake, its stakes a pressure he couldn't ignore, its outcome a question he couldn't answer, a question that might haunt him for the rest of his life. The search had yielded nothing since Elsie Marrow's testimony, the park a dead end, the blonde man a ghost who'd slipped through their fingers, the children's whereabouts a mystery that seemed to grow more impenetrable with each passing moment, their absence a puzzle with too many missing pieces, a puzzle that Alistair was determined to solve, even as the day stretched into evening, even as the light began to fade, even as hope began to waver. He'd sent officers to canvass the streets of Glenelg, their voices calling out the children's names, their hands knocking on doors, their eyes scanning backyards and alleyways, their radios crackling with updates that offered no hope, their efforts a testament to their commitment, a commitment that Alistair shared, a commitment that drove him to dig deeper, to look beyond the obvious, to find a motive that might explain the unexplainable, a motive that might lead him to the truth, a motive that might bring the children home, a motive that might be hiding in plain sight. At 4:30 p.m., Alistair returned to the beach, his notebook open, his pen scratching against the paper as he reviewed his notes, his mind racing with the possibilities, his thoughts turning to the Harrow family, their dynamics, their history, their secrets, his instinct telling him that the disappearance might not be the work of a random predator, that there might be a personal motive at play, that the children might have been targeted for a reason that could be tied to their parents, a reason that could point to revenge, a reason that could change everything. He approached Margaret and Daniel, who were still sitting on their blanket, their hands clasped together, their faces pale, their eyes red from crying, their voices silent as they stared at the jetty, their hope a fragile thing that seemed to crumble with each passing minute, their grief a weight that threatened to crush them, a weight that Alistair could feel as he knelt beside them, his voice gentle. January 26, 1966. For 35 p.m., Mr. and Mrs. Harrow, I need to ask you some more questions. I know this is hard, but we need to explore every possibility. Can you tell me if there's anyone who might have a grudge against you? Anyone who might want to hurt you or your family? Anyone who might have a reason to take your children? Margaret looked at him, her gray eyes filled with tears, her hands clutching the small shell that Elise had given her, her voice a whisper. January 26, 1966, for 40 p.m., a grudge. Why would anyone have a grudge against us? We're just a normal family, we don't have enemies, we don't hurt people, we just want our children back. Why would someone take them? Why would someone do this to us? Daniel's jaw tightened, his hands gripping Margaret's, his voice low. I can't think of anyone, Detective. We're simple people. I work at the Holden plant. Maggie takes care of the kids. We go to church. We keep to ourselves. I don't know who would do this. I don't know why they'd target us. I just want my kids back. That's all I want. But there was a flicker in his eyes, a hesitation in his voice, a shadow that Alistair noticed, a shadow that suggested there was more to the story, a shadow that he needed to explore, a shadow that might lead him to the truth, a truth that Daniel might not want to face. A truth that could change everything. Alistair pressed, his voice steady but firm. January 26, 1966, for 45 p.m., Mr. Harrow, I can see you're holding something back. I need you to be honest with me. If there's anything, anyone, any conflict, any debt, any disagreement, we need to know. It could be the key to finding your children. Please think hard. Is there anyone who might have a reason to hurt you, to hurt your family? Daniel's shoulders slumped, his hands running through his dark hair, his voice a whisper. There's my brother, Samuel. We had a falling out, a bad one, about a year ago, over money. I lent him some cash to start a business, a mechanic shop, but it failed. He never paid me back. We fought. It got ugly. We haven't spoken since, but I can't believe he'd do this. He's my brother. He loves the kids. He wouldn't hurt them, would he? Margaret's eyes widened, her voice a gasp. Samuel, you think Samuel took them, Daniel? How could you even think that? He's family. He wouldn't. He couldn't. Not our babies, not Clara, Elise, Thomas. He wouldn't. Alistair's heart raced, his pen scratching against his notebook, his mind seizing on the new lead, his voice urgent. January 26, 1966, for 50 p.m., Samuel Harrow, your brother, you had a falling out over money, a year ago, a failed business, a debt he never repaid, a fight that got ugly. You haven't spoken since. Is that right, Mr. Harrow? Where is Samuel now? Do you know where he lives? Where he might be? We need to talk to him now. Daniel nodded, his voice trembling. He lives in Morfettvale, a few miles south of here. He's got a small flat near the train station. I don't know if he's there. I don't know what he's been up to. I haven't seen him in months, but if he did this, if he took them, I'll never forgive him. I'll never forgive myself. Alistair stood, his voice sharp. We'll find him, Mr. Harrow. We'll bring him in. We'll get the truth. I promise you, we'll do everything we can to find your children. Alistair radioed his team, his voice urgent. January 26, 1966, 5 p.m., new lead. Samuel Harrow, brother of Daniel Harrow, lives in Morfettvale, near the train station, possible motive of revenge, had a falling out with Daniel over money a year ago, a debt he never repaid, a fight that got ugly. We need to bring him in for questioning. Now, send a unit to his flat. I'll meet them there. Let's move. He turned to Margaret and Daniel, his voice steady. Stay here, we'll keep you updated. We're following every lead. We'll find your children. I promise you, we won't stop until we do. Margaret nodded, her tears falling, her voice a whisper. Thank you, Detective. Please find them. Bring them back to me. I can't lose them. I can't. Alistair drove to Morfettvale, his Holden yacht speeding through the streets of Adelaide. The city a blur of lights and shadows as the sun dipped below the horizon, the sky darkening into a deep blue, the air cooling as night approached, the search continuing under the glow of floodlights set up on the beach, the volunteers still combing the sand, the officers still knocking on doors, the community still holding its breath, their hope a fragile thing that threatened to break, a hope that Alistair needed to protect, a hope that he feared might already be lost. He arrived at Samuel Harrow's flat at 5:45 p.m., a small, run-down building near the train station, its paint peeling, its windows grimy, its door ajar, a sign that someone had been there recently, a sign that made Alistair's heart race, a sign that might lead him to the children, a sign that might lead him to the truth. Samuel Harrow, 38, was inside, his face weathered, his dark hair disheveled, his hands stained with grease from working on a car in the backyard, his eyes narrowing as Alistair knocked on the door, his voice defensive. January 26, 1966, 5:50 p.m. What do you want? I haven't done anything. Who are you? What's this about? Alistair stepped inside, his badge glinting in the dim light of the flat, his voice firm. I'm Detective Alistair Finch, South Australia Police. I'm here about your brother's children, Clara, Elise, and Thomas Harrow. They went missing from Glenelg Beach this morning. Your brother mentioned a falling out between you, over money, a debt you never repaid, a fight that got ugly. I need to know where you were today. I need to know if you had anything to do with their disappearance. I need the truth. Now. Samuel's face paled, his hands raising in a gesture of surrender, his voice trembling. January 26, 1966, 5:55 p.m. My niece and nephews missing. You think I took them? You think I'd hurt them? I'd never. I love those kids. I haven't seen them in months. I was in the city today, in Adelaide, at a pub, the Crown and Anchor. I was there all day, drinking with mates. You can ask them. They'll tell you. I didn't do this, I swear. I'd never hurt them. They're family. They're my blood. Alistair's eyes narrowed, his voice sharp. We'll check your alibi. Samuel, we'll talk to your mates. We'll find out where you were. And if you're lying, if you had anything to do with this, I'll make sure you pay for it. You understand me. Revenge is a powerful motive. And I need to know if that's what this is. I need to know if you took those children to hurt your brother, to get back at him for your fight. Tell me the truth now. Samuel's hands shook, his voice a plea. I'm telling the truth. I didn't do this. I wouldn't. I was angry with Daniel, sure. But I'd never take it out on the kids. I'd never hurt them. I swear. Check my alibi. You'll see. I was nowhere near Glenelg. I didn't do this. Please find them. They're good kids. They don't deserve this. Alistair nodded, his jaw tight, his mind racing with the possibilities, his voice steady. January 26, 1966, 6 p.m. We'll verify your alibi. Samuel, we'll find out where you were. And if you're telling the truth, you've got nothing to worry about. But if you're lying, if you know anything, I'll find out, and you'll answer for it. Stay here, don't leave town, we'll be in touch. He radioed his team, his voice urgent. Check Samuel Harrow's alibi, Crown and Anchor pub in Adelaide, all day today. Talk to his mates, confirm his story, let me know what you find. I'm heading back to the beach. We need to keep pushing, we need to find those kids. Back at Glenelg Beach, the search continued into the evening, the floodlights casting an eerie glow over the sand, the volunteers still combing the area, their voices hoarse, their hands trembling, their hope fading as the night deepened, their determination a testament to their love for a community that had been shattered, a community that would never be the same, a community that would carry this wound for decades. Margaret stood at the water's edge, her hands clutching the shell, her eyes fixed on the horizon, her voice a whisper. January 26, 1966, 7 p.m. Clara, Elise, Thomas, I'm here, Mummy's here, I'll never stop looking, I'll never stop fighting, I love you so much. Her grief was a tidal wave, her guilt a constant companion, her fear a monster that grew with every moment, a monster that whispered the worst, a monster that she couldn't fight, a monster that had taken her children, a monster that might never let them go. Daniel stood beside her, his hands on her shoulders, his own tears falling, his voice a plea. We'll find them, Maggie, we have to believe that. The police are looking. They're talking to Samuel. They'll find out if he knows anything. They'll bring them back, they have to. But the doubt was a shadow in his eyes, a shadow that mirrored Margaret's, a shadow that grew with every update, a shadow that suggested the worst, a shadow that they couldn't escape, a shadow that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. They thought of Samuel, their brother, their family, a man who'd once been a part of their lives, a man who'd shared their laughter, their love, their memories, a man who might have taken their children, a man who might have destroyed their world, a man who might have turned their love into revenge, a revenge that had cost them everything, a revenge that they couldn't comprehend, a revenge that might have taken their children forever. Alistair returned to the beach, his notebook open, his mind racing with the day's findings. The blonde man, the park, Samuel Harrow, the motif of revenge that had emerged, a family feud that might have led to the unthinkable, a feud that might have cost 3 children their lives, a feud that he needed to unravel, a feud that might lead him to the truth, a truth that might be too terrible to face, a truth that might break Margaret and Daniel, a truth that might break him. He stood on the jetty, his eyes fixed on the water, his heart heavy with the weight of the case, his determination a fire that refused to die, His promise to the Harrows, a vow he couldn't break, a vow to find their children, a vow to bring them home, a vow that he feared he might not be able to keep, a vow that might haunt him for the rest of his life. The night had fully descended over Glenelg Beach, the sky a deep indigo studded with stars, the moon casting a pale glow over the sand, its light reflecting off the calm waters of Gulf St. Vincent. The air cool and heavy with the scent of salt and the faint tang of fear that had settled over the search for Clara, Elise, and Thomas Harrow, the three children who'd vanished on Australia Day, January 26, 1966. Their disappearance a mystery that had stretched into its 10th hour, a mystery that had left the community of Adelaide reeling, a mystery that had turned a day of celebration into a nightmare of loss, a nightmare that showed no signs of ending, a nightmare that threatened to consume everyone it touched. It was 8 p.m., and the search continued under the harsh glare of floodlights, their beams cutting through the darkness, their hum a constant drone beneath the sound of the waves, their light a stark contrast to the shadows that hid the truth, shadows that Detective Alastair Finch was determined to pierce, shadows that Margaret and Daniel Harrow feared might hold the worst, shadows that might never yield their secrets, shadows that might keep their children forever. Alastair stood on the promenade near the jetty, his suit jacket back on despite the lingering heat, his tie still loosened, his dark eyes bloodshot from hours of strain, his notebook clutched in his hand, its pages now a chaotic mess of notes and sketches, its margins filled with questions that had no answers, its contents a map of a case that seemed to grow more complex with each passing moment. A case that was testing him in ways he'd never been tested before, a case that was breaking his heart even as he tried to keep it at a distance, a case that he couldn't fail, a case that he feared he might already have lost. At 40, Alastair was a man who'd seen the darkest corners of human nature, a man who'd investigated crimes that had left scars on his soul, a man who'd learned to push through the pain, to focus on the facts, to keep moving forward even when hope seemed lost. But the disappearance of three children, Clara, 9, Elise, 7, and Thomas, 4, on a day meant for joy was a weight he couldn't shake, a weight that pressed down on him with every step, a weight that threatened to crush him, a weight that he carried for the Harrows, a weight that he carried for the children, a weight that he carried for himself. The search had continued without success, the park near the promenade yielding no clues, the streets of Glenelg offering no answers, the volunteers growing weary as the night deepened, their voices hoarse from calling the children's names, their hands trembling from the cold, their hope a fragile thing that threatened to break, a hope that Alastair needed to protect, a hope that he feared might already be gone. Samuel Harrow's alibi had been confirmed. His mates at the Crown and Anchor pub in Adelaide had verified that he'd been there all day, drinking and playing darts, his presence in the city a fact that cleared him of suspicion, his involvement a theory that had crumbled, his motif of revenge a lead that had gone nowhere, a lead that had left Alastair with more questions than answers, a lead that had forced him to look elsewhere, to find another suspect, to find another motive, to find the truth, a truth that might be closer than he thought, a truth that might be more twisted than he could imagine, a truth that might change everything. At 8:30 p.m., a new witness came forward, a fisherman named Walter Finch, 60, who'd been on the beach all day, his weathered hands still smelling of fish, his face lined with years of sun and salt, his eyes sharp as he approached Alastair near the lifeguard station, his voice low. January 26, 1966, 8:35 p.m. Detective, I think I saw something. I was near the jetty this morning. Around 10:15, I saw those kids, the ones you're looking for. The girl with the braids, the one with the curls, the little boy. They were with a man, tall, blonde, white shirt, khaki shorts, just like the others said, but I know him. His name's Leonard Tate. He's a drifter, hangs around Glenelg a lot, always watching the kids, gives me the creeps. I saw him talking to them, laughing with them. He gave them some coins. I thought he was just being friendly, but now, with them gone, I'm not so sure. I think he might have taken them. I think he might have done something to them. Alastair's heart raced, his pen scratching against his notebook, his mind seizing on the new lead, his voice urgent. January 26, 1966, 8:40 p.m., Leonard Tate, a drifter, tall, blonde, white shirt, khaki shorts, seen with the children on the jetty at 10:15 a.m. Gave them coins, you know him, you've seen him around, you say he watches kids, gives you the creeps, is that right, Mr. Finch? Do you know where he might be now, where he lives, where he hangs out? Walter nodded, his hands trembling, his voice low. He doesn't have a fixed place, but I've seen him sleeping in the park sometimes, the one near the promenade. He's got a camp there, under the trees, a little tent, some blankets. I saw him there last night. He might still be there. I hope you find him. I hope you find those kids. They don't deserve this, no one does. Alistair nodded, his jaw tight, his voice sharp. Thank you, Mr. Finch. You've been very helpful. We'll find him, we'll bring him in, we'll get the truth. I promise you, we'll do everything we can. Alistair radioed his team, his voice urgent. January 26, 1966, 8:45 p.m. New suspect, Leonard Tate, drifter, tall, blonde, white shirt, khaki shorts, seen with the children on the jetty at 10:15 a.m., known to hang around Glenelg, watches kids, possible camp in the park near the promenade. We need to bring him in for questioning now, send a unit to the park. I'll meet them there, let's move. He turned to an officer nearby, his voice steady. Keep the search going here, check the water again, check the dunes, we can't stop. We need to find those kids, I'll handle Tate. I'll get the truth out of him. We're not stopping until we find them. The officer nodded, his voice firm. Yes, sir, we'll keep going, we'll find them, we won't stop. Alistair headed to the park, his Holden EH speeding through the streets of Glenelg. The night a cloak that hid the truth. The stars a silent witness to the horror unfolding below. The moon a pale light that offered no comfort. A light that illuminated a path to a man who might hold the key. A man who might have taken the children. A man who might have destroyed a family. A man who might be the monster they were looking for. At 9 p.m., Alistair and his team arrived at the park, their flashlights cutting through the darkness, their voices low as they approached a small tent hidden under a cluster of trees, its canvas tattered, its blankets a pile of rags, its occupant a tall, skinny man with blonde hair, his white shirt stained with sweat, his khaki shorts torn at the hem, his face pale as he looked up, his eyes wide with fear, his hands raising in surrender, his voice trembling. January 26, 1966, 9:05 p.m. Don't shoot, I didn't do anything. What do you want? Who are you? What's this about? Alistair stepped forward, his badge glinting in the moonlight, his voice firm. Leonard Tate, I'm Detective Alistair Finch, South Australia Police. You're coming with us. We need to talk about 3 children, Clara, Elise, and Thomas Harrow. They went missing from Glenelg Beach this morning. You were seen with them on the jetty. You gave them coins. We need to know what you did, where they are, what happened to them. You're under arrest. Let's go. Leonard's hands shook, his voice a plea. January 26, 1966, 9:10 p.m. I didn't do anything, I swear. I saw them. Yeah, I talked to them. I gave them coins for ice cream. They were sweet kids. I just wanted to make them smile. I didn't take them. I didn't hurt them. I left them on the jetty. I went to get a drink. I don't know what happened to them. I swear. Alistair's eyes narrowed, his voice sharp. We'll see about that, Tate. You're coming with us. We'll get the truth out of you, one way or another. If you know where they are, if you did something to them, you'd better start talking, because I won't stop until I find them. You understand me? Leonard nodded, his tears falling, his voice a whisper. I didn't do it, I swear. I just wanted to be nice. I love kids. I wouldn't hurt them. I wouldn't. At the Glenelg police station, Alistair sat across from Leonard in a small interrogation room. The walls a dull gray, the air thick with tension, the clock on the wall ticking past 10 p.m. Its hands a reminder of the time that was slipping away, a time that might already have run out for the children, a time that Alistair couldn't afford to waste, a time that he needed to use to get the truth, a truth that might be sitting across from him, a truth that might be hidden in Leonard's words, a truth that might be more twisted than he could imagine. He leaned forward, his voice low. January 26, 1966, 10:15 p.m. Leonard, you were seen with Clara, Elise, and Thomas Harrow on the jetty at 10:15 a.m. You gave them coins, you talked to them, you laughed with them, witnesses saw you leave the jetty with them, heading toward the park. What did you do? Where did you take them? What happened to them? Tell me the truth now. Leonard's hands shook, his eyes darting around the room, his voice trembling. January 26, 1966, 10:20 p.m. I did take them, okay. I took them to the park. I wanted to play with them. I love kids. I always have. I thought they'd like the swings. I thought they'd have fun. But they got scared. The oldest one, the girl with the braids, she started crying. She said she wanted her mummy. I didn't know what to do. I panicked. I took them to a shed, an old shed near the railway tracks. I thought I could calm them down, but they kept crying. They ran away. I couldn't stop them. I don't know where they went. I swear I didn't hurt them. I just wanted to be their friend. I love them. I wouldn't hurt them. I wouldn't. Alistair's heart raced, his voice sharp. A shed near the railway tracks. You took them there. They ran away. You're saying you don't know where they are now. Is that your story, Tate? Because if you're lying, if you hurt them, if you're hiding them, I'll find out, and you'll pay for it. You understand me? Leonard broke down, his sobs echoing in the small room, his voice a wail. January 26, 1966, 10:25 p.m. I'm telling the truth, I swear. I took them to the shed, but they ran away. I don't know where they went. I didn't hurt them. I just wanted to love them. I wanted them to love me. I didn't mean for this to happen. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Alistair stood, his voice urgent. January 26, 1966, 10:30 p.m. We've got a location. A shed near the railway tracks. We need to search it now. Send a unit there. Look for any sign of the children, any evidence. Let's move. He turned back to Leonard, his voice cold. You'd better hope we find them, Tate. You'd better hope they're okay, because if they're not, if you did something to them, I'll make sure you never see the light of day again, you hear me? But an hour later, at 11:30 p.m., Leonard retracted his confession, his voice a whisper as he sat in the interrogation room, his hands cuffed, his eyes downcast. January 26, 1966, 11:35 p.m. I lied. I didn't take them to the shed. I didn't take them anywhere. I just said that because I was scared. You were yelling at me. I thought you'd hurt me. I saw them on the jetty. I gave them coins, but I left. I didn't go to the park with them. I don't know what happened to them. I swear, I didn't do anything. I just wanted to make them smile, that's all. I love kids. I wouldn't hurt them. I wouldn't. Alistair's jaw tightened, his frustration a fire that burned through him, his voice low. You're playing games with me, Tate. You're wasting my time. Time those kids don't have. If you're lying, if you know where they are, you'd better tell me now, because I'll find out, and when I do, you'll wish you'd never met me. The search of the shed near the railway tracks yielded nothing. No sign of the children, no evidence of their presence, no clues to their whereabouts, the shed a dead end, Leonard's confession a false lead, his retraction a blow to the investigation, his motif of love, a twisted, obsessive affection for children, a possibility that Alistair couldn't ignore, a possibility that made his stomach churn, a possibility that might be the key to the case, a possibility that might lead him to the truth, a truth that might be too terrible to face, a truth that might destroy the Harrows, a truth that might destroy him. He returned to the beach at midnight, his notebook open, his mind racing with the day's events, his heart heavy with the weight of the case, his determination a fire that refused to die, his promise to the Harrows a vow he couldn't break, a vow to find their children, a vow that he feared he might not be able to keep, a vow that might haunt him for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, Margaret had left the blanket where she'd spent the day, her hands still clutching the shell, her feet carrying her to the jetty, the place where she'd last seen her children, the place where her world had shattered, the place where her grief felt most alive, the place where she felt closest to them, even as they slipped further away, even as the night deepened, even as hope faded. She stood at the end of the jetty, her floral sundress fluttering in the cool breeze, her gray eyes staring out at the water, her tears falling into the gulf, her voice a whisper. January 26, 1966, 11 p.m. Clara, Elise, Thomas, I'm here, Mummy's here. I'm so sorry, I should have kept you safe. I should have held your hands. I should have never let you go. I'll never stop looking. I'll never stop loving you. I'll never stop fighting for you. I promise, I love you. I love you so much. The water lapped against the jetty, its sound a gentle rhythm that offered no comfort, its surface a mirror that reflected her pain, its depths a mystery that might hold her children, a mystery that she couldn't face, a mystery that she couldn't escape, a mystery that had taken everything from her, a mystery that might never be solved. Daniel joined her, his hands on her shoulders, his own tears falling, his voice a plea. January 26, 1966, 11:05 p.m. Maggie, come back to the blanket. You need to rest. You've been standing here for hours. The police are still looking. They'll find them. We have to believe that. We can't give up. We can't. But Margaret shook her head, her hands clutching the shell, her voice a wail. I can't leave, Daniel. This is where they were. This is where I last saw them. I can still hear their laughter. I can still see their smiles. I can't leave them. I can't. What if they come back? What if they're looking for me? I have to be here. I have to be here for them. Daniel pulled her into his arms, his own grief a mirror to hers, his voice a whisper. I know, Maggie, I know. I hear them too. I see them too. But we need to stay strong. We need to keep going for them. For us, we'll find them. We have to. The night stretched on, the search continuing under the floodlights, the volunteers still combing the beach, their voices a faint echo in the darkness, their hands trembling with exhaustion, their hope a flicker that refused to die, a flicker that Margaret clung to as she stood on the jetty, her grief a tidal wave that threatened to drown her, her guilt a constant companion that whispered her failures, her love a fire that burned through her pain, a fire that would sustain her through the days, the weeks, the years to come, a fire that would never die, a fire that would keep her children alive in her heart, even as they slipped further away, even as the mystery deepened, even as the truth remained hidden, a truth that might never be found, a truth that might destroy her, a truth that might destroy them all. The first light of dawn crept over the horizon, painting the sky above Glenelg Beach in soft shades of pink and gold, the gentle glow a stark contrast to the darkness that had enveloped the search for Clara, Elise, and Thomas Harrow, the three children who'd vanished on Australia Day, January 26, 1966, their disappearance now stretching into its second day, a mystery that had gripped the city of Adelaide, a mystery that had turned a celebration into a tragedy that showed no signs of resolution, a tragedy that threatened to break everyone it touched. It was January 27, 1966, 5 a.m., and the beach was still a hive of activity. The floodlights that had burned through the night now dimming in the early morning light, their harsh beams replaced by the natural glow of the sun, their hum a faint echo beneath the sound of the waves, their presence a reminder of the sleepless hours that had passed, hours that had yielded no answers, hours that had deepened the despair of a community on edge, a community that feared the worst, a community that refused to give up, even as hope began to fade, even as the truth remained hidden, even as the children remained lost. Detective Alistair Finch stood on the promenade, his suit jacket crumpled, his tie long since discarded, his white shirt stained with sweat and sand, his dark eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep, his notebook clutched in his hand, its pages a testament to the hours of fruitless searching, its contents a map of a case that seemed to grow more hopeless with each passing moment, a case that was testing him in ways he'd never been tested before, a case that was breaking his heart even as he tried to keep it at a distance, a case that he couldn't fail, a case that he feared he might already have lost. At 40, Alistair was a man who'd seen the worst of humanity in his years with the South Australia Police, a man who'd investigated crimes that had left scars on his soul, a man who'd learned to push through the pain, to focus on the facts, to keep moving forward even when the odds were against him. But the disappearance of three children, Clara, 9, Elise, 7, and Thomas, 4, on a day meant for joy was a weight he couldn't shake, a weight that pressed down on him with every step, a weight that threatened to crush him, a weight that he carried for the Harrows, a weight that he carried for the children, a weight that he carried for himself. The search had continued through the night, the volunteers and officers combing every inch of Glenelg Beach, their voices hoarse from calling the children's names, their hands trembling from the cold, their hope a fragile thing that threatened to break, a hope that Alistair needed to protect, a hope that he feared might already be gone. Leonard Tate's confession had been a false lead, his retraction a blow to the investigation, his motive of love, a twisted, obsessive affection for children, a possibility that Alistair couldn't ignore, a possibility that made his stomach churn, a possibility that had led nowhere, a possibility that had left him with more questions than answers, a possibility that had forced him to look elsewhere to find another lead, to find the truth, a truth that might be out there, waiting to be found, a truth that might be too terrible to face, a truth that might destroy the Harrows, a truth that might destroy him. At 6 a.m., a new witness came forward, a teenager named Tommy Vale, 16, who'd been walking home from a friend's house the previous morning, his hands stuffed in the pockets of his jeans, his eyes sharp as he approached Alistair near the lifeguard station, his voice trembling. January 27, 1966, 6:05 a.m. Detective, I think I saw something. I was walking along Jetty Road yesterday. Around 10:30 a.m., I saw a car, an old sedan, dark green, driving toward the hills, and there were kids in the back, 3 of them. I'm pretty sure it was them, the ones you're looking for, a girl with braids, a girl with curls, a little boy. They were looking out the window. I thought the man driving was their dad. But now, with them missing, I'm not so sure. I think he might have taken them. I think I should have stopped them. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Alistair's heart raced, his pen scratching against his notebook, his mind seizing on the new lead, his voice urgent. January 27, 1966, 6:10 a.m. A dark green sedan. 3 children in the back, matching the description of Clara, Elise, and Thomas Harrow, heading toward the hills at 10:30 a.m. You thought the driver was their father, but now you're not sure. Is that right, Tommy? Did you see the driver? Can you describe him? Did you see anything else, a license plate, anything? Tommy shook his head, his hands trembling, his voice low. I didn't get a good look at the driver. He was wearing a hat, I think. I couldn't see his face. I didn't see the license plate. I was too far away. I just saw the kids. They looked okay. They weren't crying or anything, but I don't know. I've got a bad feeling now. I wish I'd done something. I wish I'd stopped the car. I'm sorry. I hope you find them. I hope they're okay. Alistair nodded, his jaw tight, his voice steady. Thank you, Tommy. You've been very helpful. We'll follow this lead. We'll find that car. We'll find those kids. I promise you, we'll do everything we can. He radioed his team, his voice urgent. January 27, 1966, 6:15 a.m. New lead. A dark green sedan. 3 children in the back, matching the description of the Harrow kids, heading toward the hills at 10:30 a.m. yesterday. Driver unknown, possibly male, wearing a hat. We need to search the roads leading to the Adelaide hills, set up checkpoints, look for any sign of that car. Let's move. The search shifted to the Adelaide hills, a rugged expanse of rolling hills and dense bushland just east of the city. Its winding roads a maze of possibilities, its forests a hiding place for secrets, its beauty a cruel contrast to the horror that might be unfolding within its borders, a horror that Alistair feared might involve the children, a horror that he needed to stop, a horror that he might already be too late to prevent. Officers and volunteers fanned out across the hills, their vehicles kicking up dust on the narrow roads, their voices calling the children's names, their eyes scanning the bush for any sign of a dark green sedan, their hands pushing through the underbrush, their hope a flicker in the darkness of the case. A flicker that Alistair clung to as he coordinated the search, his mind racing with the possibilities, his heart heavy with the fear that they might be chasing a ghost, a fear that he couldn't. Voice, a fear that he couldn't let take hold, a fear that threatened to consume him. But the search of the hills yielded nothing. No dark green sedan, no sign of the children, no evidence of their presence, the roads a labyrinth that offered no answers, the bush a silent witness to their absence, the lead a dead end that left Alistair with more questions than answers, his frustration a fire that burned through him, his voice low. January 27, 1966, 12 p.m., another dead end, another lead that goes nowhere. We're running out of time, we're running out of hope, but I can't stop. I won't stop, not until we find them, not until we bring them home. He returned to Glenelg Beach, his notebook open, his mind racing with the day's events, his heart heavy with the weight of the case, his determination a fire that refused to die, his promise to the Harrows a vow he couldn't break, a vow to find their children, a vow that he feared he might not be able to keep, a vow that might haunt him for the rest of his life. Back at the beach, Margaret Harrow had spent the night on the jetty, her floral sundress now crumpled and stained with sand, her hands still clutching the small shell that Elise had given her gray eyes red from crying, her voice a whisper as she stood at the water's edge, her tears falling into the gulf, her heart breaking with every moment that passed without news, her guilt a constant companion that whispered her failures, her love a fire that burned through her pain, a fire that would sustain her through the days to come, a fire that would never die, a fire that kept her children alive in her heart, even as they slipped further away, even as the mystery deepened, even as the truth remained hidden. Daniel had stayed by her side, his hands on her shoulders, his own tears falling, his voice a plea. January 27, 1966, 5:30 a.m. Maggie, you need to rest. You've been up all night. You're going to make yourself sick. The police are still looking. They'll find them. We have to believe that. We can't give up. We can't. But Margaret shook her head, her hands clutching the shell, her voice a wail. January 27, 1966, 5:35 a.m. I can't rest, Daniel. I can't, not while they're out there, not while they're missing, not while they need me. I have to be here. I have to be here for them. What if they come back? What if they're looking for me? I can't leave them. I can't. Daniel pulled her into his arms, his own grief a mirror to hers, his voice a whisper. I know, Maggie, I know. I feel it too. I can't rest either, but we need to stay strong for them. For us, we'll find them. We have to. They stood together, their tears mingling with the salt water, their hearts breaking in unison, their hope a fragile thing that threatened to shatter, a hope that they clung to as the sun rose, a hope that they needed to survive, a hope that might already be lost, a hope that might never be found. At 7 p.m., as the search continued without success, Margaret made a decision, her voice firm despite her exhaustion, her hands trembling as she spoke to Daniel. January 27, 1966, 7:05 p.m. I want to hold a vigil, Daniel, tonight at the church. I want the community to come together. I want us to pray for Clara, Elise, and Thomas. I want them to know we're still here. We're still fighting, we're still hoping. I need to do this. I need to feel them. I need to keep them close. Please help me. We need to do this. Daniel nodded, his own tears falling, his voice a whisper. Of course, Maggie, we'll do it. We'll gather everyone. We'll pray. We'll keep them close. We'll show them we're not giving up. We'll show them we love them, always. They left the beach, their hands clasped together, their steps slow as they walked to St. Peter's Church in Glenelg, a small stone building with stained glass windows that glowed in the evening light. Its steeple a beacon in the darkness, its doors a sanctuary for a community in mourning, a community that needed to come together, a community that needed to hold on to hope, even as it slipped away, even as the night deepened, even as the truth remained hidden. The vigil began at 8 p.m., the church filled with the people of Glenelg, their faces a sea of grief and determination, their hands clutching candles, their voices a chorus of prayers, their hearts united in a shared hope. A hope for the safe return of Clara, Elise, and Thomas, a hope that they might never see fulfilled, a hope that they couldn't let go, a hope that was all they had left. Margaret stood at the front of the church, her hands still clutching the shell, her voice trembling as she spoke, her tears falling as she addressed the crowd. January 27, 1966, 8:15 p.m. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for being here, for Clara, for Elise, for Thomas, my babies. They're out there somewhere. I know they are. I can feel them. I need them to know we're here. We're waiting. We're fighting. I need you to pray with me, to hope with me, to believe with me. They're my everything. They're our everything. Please help me bring them home. Please don't let them be forgotten. Don't let them be lost. I love them. I love them so much. The crowd murmured their support, their voices a soft hum of prayers, their candles a sea of light in the darkness, their hands reaching out to touch Margaret, to offer comfort, to share her pain, to show her she wasn't alone, to show her that her children were their children, that her loss was their loss, that her hope was their hope, a hope that they would carry together, a hope that they would hold on to, even as the days turned into weeks, the weeks into months, the months into years, a hope that would sustain them, even as the mystery deepened, even as the truth remained hidden, even as the children remained lost. Daniel stood beside Margaret, his hands on her shoulders, his own voice a whisper. January 27, 1966, 8:20 p.m. Clara, Elise, Thomas, we're here, Daddy's here, I love you, I'll never stop looking, I'll never stop fighting, I'll bring you home, I promise, I love you always. Outside the church, the city of Adelaide lived in fear, the news of the missing children spreading like wildfire, the headlines in the Advertiser screaming of the tragedy, the radio stations broadcasting updates that offered no hope, the parents pulling their children closer, their voices hushed as they spoke of the man on the jetty, of Leonard Tate, of the dark green sedan, of the hills, of the danger that lurked in their midst, a danger that might strike again, a danger that had already taken. 3 children, a danger that they couldn't escape, a danger that had changed their city forever. They locked their doors, they kept their children inside, they watched the shadows, their fear a palpable force that hung over the streets, a force that turned the bright colors of summer into shades of gray, a force that reminded them of the fragility of safety, the fragility of joy, the fragility of life, a force that would linger for years to come, a force that would define a generation, a force that would never truly fade. Alistair attended the vigil, his notebook open, his mind racing with the day's events, his heart heavy with the weight of the case, his determination a fire that refused to die, his promise to the Harrows a vow he couldn't break, a vow to find their children, a vow that he feared he might not be able to keep, a vow that might haunt him for the rest of his life. He stood at the back of the church, his eyes fixed on Margaret and Daniel, their grief a weight he could feel, their hope a fragile thing he needed to protect, their children a responsibility he couldn't fail, a responsibility that would test him, a responsibility that might break him. But as he looked at the sea of candles, the chorus of prayers, the community united in their shared pain, he felt a flicker of hope, a flicker that he clung to, a flicker that might lead him to the truth, a truth that might be out there, waiting to be found, a truth that might bring the children home, a truth that might heal a city, a truth that might heal them all. The days following the vigil at St. Peter's Church turned into weeks, the weeks into months, the months into a year, and still, there was no sign of Clara, Elise, and Thomas Harrow, the three children who'd vanished from Glenelg Beach on Australia Day, January 26, 1966, their disappearance a mystery that had gripped the city of Adelaide, a mystery that had shattered a family, a mystery that had left a community in mourning, a mystery that had become a cold case, a case that Detective Alistair Finch couldn't solve, a case that would haunt him for the rest of his life, a case that would haunt everyone it touched, a case that would never truly be forgotten, even as the world moved on, even as the years passed, even as the hope faded, even as the truth remained hidden, a truth that might never be found, a truth that might hold the key to healing, a truth that might hold the key to heartbreak, a truth that might hold the key to everything. By January 26, 1967, exactly 1 year after the children's disappearance, the investigation had officially been declared cold, the leads exhausted, the suspects cleared, the witnesses silent, the evidence non-existent, the case a puzzle with too many missing pieces. A puzzle that Alistair had tried to solve, a puzzle that had defeated him, a puzzle that had left him with a guilt he couldn't shake, a guilt that would follow him into retirement, a guilt that would follow him to his grave. At 41, Alistair stood in his office at the South Australia Police Headquarters in Adelaide, his suit jacket hanging on the back of his chair, his tie loosened, his dark eyes staring at the case file on his desk, its pages a testament to a year of fruitless searching, its contents a map of a mystery that had consumed him, a mystery that had changed him, a mystery that had broken him, a mystery that he couldn't let go, even as he was forced to move on, even as he was forced to admit defeat even, as he was forced to face the Harrows with the news he dreaded giving, the news that would break their hearts all over again, the news that would confirm their worst fears, the news that would leave them with nothing but questions, questions that might never be answered, questions that might haunt them forever. Alistair drove to the Harrow home in Mile End, a small, weathered bungalow with peeling paint and a sagging porch, its windows dark, its yard overgrown, its door a portal to a grief that had become a permanent resident, a grief that had aged Margaret and Daniel beyond their years, a grief that had turned their home into a shrine to the children they'd lost, a shrine to the hope they couldn't let go, a shrine to the love that would never die, a love that had sustained them through the darkest days, a love that had kept them going, even as the world moved on, even as the case went cold, even as their children remained lost. He knocked on the door, his hands trembling, his voice low. January 26, 1967, 10 a.m., Mr. and Mrs. Harrow. It's Detective Finch. I need to speak with you. I'm so sorry. I wish I had better news. I wish I could bring them back to you. I wish I could give you the answers you deserve. Margaret opened the door, her floral sundress replaced by a gray cardigan and a simple skirt, her gray eyes hollow, her hands clutching the small shell that Elise had given her, a shell that had become a talisman, a shell that had become a lifeline, a shell that had become a symbol of her loss, a symbol of her love, a symbol of her fight, a fight that she'd waged for a year, a fight that she'd never stop waging, a fight that had defined her, a fight that had kept her children alive in her heart. Even as they slipped further away, even as the mystery deepened, even as the truth remained hidden, Daniel stood behind her, his broad shoulders hunched, his dark hair now streaked with gray, his face lined with the weight of a year of grief, his hands trembling as he reached for Margaret, his voice a whisper. January 26, 1967, 10:05 a.m. Detective, please, tell us you found something. Tell us you found them. Tell us they're coming home. Please, we can't take much more. We need to know. We need our babies back. Alistair stepped inside, his notebook open, his voice heavy. January 26, 1967, 10:10 a.m. I'm so sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Harrow. We've done everything we can. We've followed every lead. We've questioned every suspect. We've searched every inch of Glenelg, the hills, the city. We've had no new leads, no new evidence. The case is being classified as cold. But I promise you I'll keep the file open. I'll keep looking, I'll never stop. Not really, I failed you. I failed your children. I'm so sorry. I wish I could have done more. I wish I could have brought them home. Margaret's knees buckled, her hands clutching the shell, her voice a wail. January 26, 1967, 10:15 a.m. Cold. You're giving up. You're leaving them out there. You're leaving my babies. How can you do this? How can you stop? They're still out there. I know they are. I can feel them. I can't stop. I won't stop. I'll never stop. I'll find them. I'll bring them home. I have to. They're my everything. They're my babies. I love them. I love them so much. Daniel caught her, his own tears falling, his voice a plea. January 26, 1967, 10:20 a.m. Detective, please don't give up. Don't let them be forgotten. They're our children. They're our world. We can't live without them. We can't. We need to know what happened. We need to know where they are. We need to bring them home. Please keep looking, keep fighting for them, for us. Alistair nodded, his own eyes wet, his voice a whisper. I'll never forget them, Mr. Harrow. I'll never stop looking, I promise you. I'll keep the file open. I'll check every new lead. I'll do everything I can. I'm so sorry. I wish I could have done more. I wish I could have found them. I wish I could have given you the answers you deserve. He left the Harrow home, his heart heavy with the weight of his failure, his mind racing with the memories of the case, his determination a fire that refused to die, a fire that would burn for years to come, a fire that would never truly go out, a fire that would keep the children alive in his heart, even as they remained lost, even as the mystery remained unsolved, even as the truth remained hidden. The years passed, the decades rolled by, and Margaret Harrow never stopped fighting, her voice a constant in the media, her hands clutching the shell, her heart holding on to the hope that had sustained her through the darkest days, a hope that had kept her children alive in her memory, a hope that had kept her going, even as the world moved on, even as the case faded from the headlines, even as the city of Adelaide tried to heal. A city that would never truly forget, a city that would always carry the scar of that day, a city that would always remember the children who'd vanished, the children who'd become a symbol of loss, a symbol of mystery, a symbol of love, a love that Margaret carried through the years, a love that never died, a love that defined her, a love that would lead her to a moment that would change everything, a moment that would come 59 years later, a moment that would reopen the wound, a moment that would reopen the case, a moment that would leave her with more questions than answers, a moment that would leave her on the edge of hope and despair, a moment that would leave her story unresolved. On March 22, 2025, Margaret Harrow, now 91, sat in a nursing home in Glenelg, her frail hands trembling as she clutched the shell, its pearlescent surface worn smooth by decades of touch, its edges a testament to the years of grief, its presence a lifeline that had sustained her through 59 years of loss, a loss that had aged her beyond her years, a loss that had turned her home into a shrine to her children, a shrine to her hope, a shrine to her love, a love that had outlasted time, a love that had outlasted pain, a love that had outlasted everything. Her room was a museum of memories, its walls covered with newspaper clippings, photographs, and letters, its shelves lined with mementos of Clara, Elise, and Thomas. A blue ribbon Clara had won at school, a drawing Elise had made of a seagull, a tiny pair of red swim trunks that Thomas had worn that day. Mementos that kept them close, mementos that kept them alive, mementos that kept her fighting, a fight that had defined her life, a fight that had never ended, a fight that might finally bring her the answers she'd sought for so long, answers that might bring her peace, answers that might bring her pain, answers that might bring her nothing at all. That morning, a nurse named Clara Finch, 45, a woman named after the child who'd vanished, a woman who'd grown up hearing the story of the Harrow children, a woman who'd dedicated her life to caring for others, brought Margaret a letter, its envelope plain, its handwriting unfamiliar, its contents a shock that made her heart race, her hands trembling as she opened it, her eyes widening as she saw a photograph of Leonard Tate, the drifter who'd been a suspect all those years ago, his face older, but unmistakable, his blonde hair now gray, his eyes still cold, his presence a ghost from the past, a ghost that had haunted her for decades, a ghost that might hold the key to her children, a ghost that might hold the truth, a truth that she'd sought for 59 years, a truth that might finally be within reach, a truth that might slip through her fingers once again. Tucked inside the envelope was a note, its words written in a shaky hand. I know where they are. Margaret's breath caught, her voice a whisper. March 22nd, 2025, 10 a.m., Leonard Tate. Someone knows where my babies are. After all these years, we need to tell the police. We need to find out who sent this. We need to know the truth. I need to know. I need my children. I need to bring them home. I need to hold them again. I need to tell them I love them. I need to tell them I never stopped. I never stopped fighting. I never stopped loving. I never stopped hoping. Her hands shook as she clutched the photograph, her tears falling onto the paper, her heart racing with a hope she hadn't felt in years, a hope that was tinged with fear, a fear that this might be another dead end, a fear that this might be another false lead, a fear that this might be another heartbreak, a heartbreak she wasn't sure she could survive, a heartbreak that might finally break her, a heartbreak that might finally end her fight, a fight that had defined her life, a fight that had kept her children alive, a fight that might finally bring her the answers she'd sought for so long, answers that might bring her peace, answers that might bring her pain, answers that might bring her nothing at all. Clara Finch, the nurse, called Margaret's son James Harrow, 55, a man who'd grown up in the shadow of his siblings' disappearance, a man who'd carried the weight of his mother's grief, a man who'd dedicated his life to supporting her fight, a man who'd never known his brother and sisters, a man who'd never stopped hoping, a man who'd never stopped loving, a man who'd never stopped believing, a man who now stood in his mother's room, his hands trembling as he read the note, his voice urgent. March 22nd, 2025, 10:15 a.m. Mom, this is big, this could be it. We need to call the police. We need to tell them about the letter, about Leonard Tate. We need to find out who sent this. We need to find them. We need to know, after all these years, we need to know what happened to Clara, Elise, and Thomas. We need to bring them home. We need to give you peace. We need to give them justice. We need to do this. For them, for you, for us. Margaret nodded, her tears falling, her voice a whisper. Yes, James, call them. Tell them we need to know. I need to know. I've waited 59 years. I can't wait any longer. I need my babies. I need to know. I need to hold them. I need to tell them I love them. I need to tell them I never stopped. I never stopped fighting. I never stopped loving. I never stopped hoping. James called the South Australia police, his voice urgent. March 22nd, 2025, 10:30 a.m. My name is James Harrow. My mother, Margaret Harrow, received a letter this morning about the disappearance of her children, Clara, Elise, and Thomas Harrow, a cold case from 1966. There's a photo of Leonard Tate, a suspect from back then, and a note that says, I know where they are. We need someone to look into this. We need answers. Please, after all these years, we need closure. We need to know what happened. We need to bring them home. The officer on the phone, a young woman named Elise Tate, 30, a name that echoed the past, a name that carried the weight of history, a name that made Margaret's heart ache, promised to reopen the case, her voice steady. March 22nd, 2025, 10:35 a.m. Mr. Harrow, I'm so sorry for your family's loss. We'll look into this. We'll assign a detective to the case. We'll investigate the letter, the photo. We'll do everything we can to find out who sent it, to find out what they know, to find your siblings. I promise you, we'll do our best. We'll keep you updated. We'll get to the bottom of this. Margaret sat in her chair, her hands clutching the shell, her eyes fixed on the photograph of Leonard Tate, her heart racing with a hope she hadn't felt in decades, a hope that was tinged with fear, a fear that this might be another dead end, a fear that this might be another false lead, a fear that this might be another heartbreak, a heartbreak she wasn't sure she could survive, a heartbreak that might finally break her, a heartbreak that might finally end her fight, a fight that had defined her life, a fight that had kept her children alive, a fight that might finally bring her the answers she'd sought for so long, answers that might bring her peace, answers that might bring her pain, answers that might bring her nothing at all. She thought of Clara's serious eyes, her careful way of watching over her siblings, her voice so full of responsibility, a responsibility that Margaret had trusted, a responsibility that had failed her, a responsibility that had led to this moment, a moment of loss that she couldn't comprehend, a moment that had defined her, a moment that had broken her. She thought of Elise's wild curls, her laughter, her love for shells, her small hands that had held up the pearlescent treasure with such pride, a treasure that now felt like a curse, a treasure that Margaret clutched as if it could bring her daughter back, a treasure that offered no comfort, only pain. She thought of Thomas's chubby cheeks, his delighted squeals, his tiny hands that had held hers so tightly, his voice a chant of joy, a joy that had been stolen, a joy that she might never hear again, a joy that had been replaced by a silence that was deafening, a silence that was unbearable, a silence that was her new reality. The case of the Harrow children remained open, its mystery a haunting echo in Adelaide's history, its tragedy a wound that refused to heal, its questions a challenge that lingered through the decades, a reminder of the fragility of life, the persistence of love, the enduring power of a mother's fight for her children. A fight that might finally bring the truth to light, or might simply deepen the mystery, leaving Margaret, James, and the city of Adelaide with the same unanswered questions, the same unresolved grief, the same echo of a tragedy that refused to be forgotten, a tragedy that had begun on a sunny day at Glenelg Beach, a tragedy that had ended with a letter in 2025, a letter that might hold the key to everything, a letter that might hold the key to nothing, a letter that left the story on a cliffhanger that might never be resolved, a cliffhanger that might haunt them forever, a cliffhanger that might be the final chapter, or might be the beginning of a new one, a chapter that only time would tell, a chapter that only the truth could write, a truth that might never be found, a truth that might change everything, a truth that might change nothing at all.